meeting of Wednesday, May 16th. And if you all rise and follow after me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with the city planner, interim city planner, please call the roll. Can we get the light on? Or I'll call it for you. Let's take a burden off our interim city. Commissioner Ruin?
Here.
Mr. Blackwell?
Here.
Mr. Talley?
Here.
Mr. Brown is here. Commissioner, whatever your name is, Crandall? Commissioner Wu?
Yeah.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
There are no special, we have a special presentation tonight, a presentation by the San Clemente Historical Society in honor of National Preservation Month. And the president, we're honored with the president of the Historical Society, Mr. Culbertson.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. My name is Larry Culbertson. Been with the Historical Society for about 10 years, and I'm currently president. I've got about a 15-page presentation here, so I better get right with it because I'm sure that that Chairman Brown will cut me right off at 10 minutes. So, do I change the slide here? Somebody, yeah, please advance it to the next one.
Do the mouse.
Turn the mouse right next to it.
There you go, see?
Okay, they're good. Except now I've got something over there. It is. So start out with our mission statement. We put this out at every one of our meetings so that everybody knows just what we're here for, what we're supposed to be doing. And basically, we try to unite all the people that are interested in historic preservation, get them together to foster community appreciation and identity, to preserve and promote the heritage of San Clemente. And we come to the city to try to present our views on anything that's pertaining to historical preservation.
And Larry, on our schedule tonight, there is no time limit for you, so have fun.
Okay, I'll take it slow then.
You can talk slowly and breathe in, exhale. Okay.
If I can master this, there we go. Past events. We'll start out back at the end of 2016. We have quarterly meetings. In our December meeting in 2016, we had the history of the Miramar. I was down at most all of your meetings covering the Miramar project, and we tried to keep our members apprised of what was happening. So at that December meeting, Rod Gantos had put together a real great presentation on the history of the Miramar, and then we had the proponents of the Miramar project come and explain what their new project was about. And fortunately that passed, and we're all holding our breath on that one. Then in March of 2017, we had Jack Lashbrook, our patriarch. He spoke about San Clemente back in the 1930s and 40s. That's a picture of Jack there on the upper right. He came here in 1938 when he was, 1937 when he was 11 years old. His parents owned the bait shop and the galley restaurant out at the end of the pier. So he had a lot of good stories about the old days. In June, we had Sam Tiberi. I think you probably all know Sam's Shoes there on Avenida Del Mar. And Sam got out of the Navy. That's a picture of him when he got out of the Navy. He came to San Clemente, opened his shoe store, and he had a lot of great pictures, great stories about the Nixon days and the Secret Service, people coming in, having their shoes done. Real great presentation. In September, we did historic districts, a presentation by yours truly on historic districts in Orange County. That's something that we've been pushing for. In December, we had what we call the Dival dynasty. As you probably all know, Lois Dival, who's turning 90 this month, came to San Clemente in the 1930s, and so she had a lot of good stories to tell. Also with her was her son Fred, who's unfortunately deceased now. We just lost him this past February. He spoke about Nixon. Fred was very dear to our heart because he's the one who got the Historical Society going, and he's also the one responsible for Nixon coming to town.
He was.
So it was a great presentation. Also, Lois's nephew, Rick Dival, told good stories about the 1940s. So it was a real interesting meeting. Okay, I think I got it. Then On February 24th, this past February, we had San Clemente Day. I hope you're all able to attend some of the festivities. There on the lower left, you'll see we set up a booth in one of the rooms at the Ole Hansen Beach Club. We had mostly photographs, but we had a lot of other things that we took out of our archives. It was a well-received presentation. We also had, we brought Ole back. You see Ole up there in the upper right? 144 years old, but going strong. So we had the chicken dinner, and then he sold lots. It was a.
You guys knocked it out of the ballpark down there at the community center, I thought. I think you guys
Yeah, it was a real nice event. We were very happy to take part in that. I've got it down to you to rotate the wheel. There we go. Upcoming events. So in addition to our monthly board meetings, which everyone is invited to come to, we also have quarterly meetings that are open to the public with, as I was just telling you there, we have guest speakers on topics that are pertinent to historic preservation. Upcoming presentations on June 7th, next week, we're having the Luna family. They've been in San Clemente since the 1930s. And so Tom Marshall is one of our fairly new board members. He's putting the presentation together. He's interviewing all of the family members that he can get a hold of.
All 9 of them are coming?
I don't know if we get all 9, but we'll get a good cross-section. A lot of good stories, a lot of good pictures. That's from 6 to 8 at the Ole Hansen Fireside Room, so I encourage all of you to come and visit if you can. We're having the annual meeting. Our tradition for over a decade now is at our annual meeting, in any years where there's an election, we have a candidate forum. So we hope to be doing that again Sunday, September 16. And then our next quarterly meeting after that will be Thursday, December 6th. We don't know who we're going to have, but it'll be somebody good. There we go.
We're getting dizzy.
Nervous finger there. Projects. Murals on Del Mar. This is a joint project between the Historical Society and the Downtown Business Association and the city, and involves the creation and installation of murals of San Clemente landmarks. I imagine all of you have seen those in those little bulb outs that are in the upper part of Avenida Del Mar. We actually started that program back in 2009. We selected 16 of our favorite San Clemente landmarks. We had an artist draw some renderings of them, kind of stylized artwork. And so far, we've installed 8 of the 14. So we still have 6 to go.
You got any more to go soon, or?
We're working on it. It's kind of a bottleneck with the man who does the tiles. We've got all the artwork selected.
Yeah, I know.
And we have some donors lined up.
With him and Catherine Stoll-Dennis, so we can get the frogs done at the Casa, and he's hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, we're considering possibly finding somebody to help us move it along.
Well aware of it, yeah.
But it's a nice project. We're also, see in the upper left there, the little, it's a brass or bronze plaque. You too can have one of those with your name on it. You can talk to me later about what it costs. Not much. Another project that we're doing, we finally started, was our living history. We'd been talking about it for years, and we finally went out and invested in a nice quality camcorder, so we're now recording all of the old timers. And so far we've done the Divels, we've done Jack Lashbrook, Norm Haven, Sam Tiberi. We've got 6 or 7 of the old families, and we're working on the Lunas right now. So we're getting all that. It's one thing to have the audio, but to have the video is really, really great. So there's a picture of Lois there, our matriarch, and Fred, as they say, who's no longer with us. Another project is the Fish Carts to Fiestas. I brought the copy of this that I'll pass around. You can all take a look at that, and I can get it later. This is a book that we put together in 1975. Our former president of the Historical Society and a couple of the artists in town worked very hard, and they put this together for the purpose of educating the third graders. As you probably know, the third graders study some of the local history. That's one of the things they do, and so we put the San Clemente history together for them. For the past 43 years, we've been providing those books to every third grader in town. Currently,
third grader.
Yes.
In fact, he went to Casa Romantica yesterday, and was telling me all about stuff. So we started talking about Spanish colonial revitalization architecture. But I don't think I've ever seen this book.
Yeah, we've been providing them for all these years.
I'll find out tomorrow because because I think that's awesome.
So the first edition was in 1975. It was re-edited in 1999, and then we did it again just this past year. And we just ordered up about 500 of them and distributed them to 7 different elementary schools.
Just recently, you distributed them, Larry, just in the last month or so?
Yes. I think they went out about
So Jason
5
will go
weeks
home
ago.
and frisk his son and see he's got the book in his backpack.
I know he doesn't have it in his backpack. He's got all sorts of stuff in his backpack. This has never been.
We don't give them to the children. We give them to the classroom, so they reuse them for a couple of years.
Good. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
But just about all the teachers in the district requested them, and it was right at 500 that we distributed. And we do that at no cost. We line up donors in town to help us finance that. Another project is the Beach Club weather vane. You've probably been hearing about that, read about it in the paper. We've been working on that for the past year. When the Beach Club was built back in 1927, that's a great photo there on the left. That was the opening day, and that's probably one of the best pictures of the weather vane that we have. We've only got about 3, and that's probably the best one. And there it is blown up. So Lisa Spinella took that, she's one of our members, graphic artist here in town. She took that drawing and did a very careful rendition of it and blew it up. And we've done a lot of work working on trying to get just the right size, putting the model up on a pole, holding it in the same position as the picture. We finally got it down. So the city has signed off on our plan. We got our building permit, planning signed off on it. It's just a few little glitches that we're going to work out. So hopefully it's going to be up within 6 months. Oh, and I should mention there that the Women's Club and Jackie and Richard Ramirez contributed to that. We haven't pulled all the money together, but they contributed to that project. Also on the fish carts, I should mention Eileen and Paul Brassow of San Clemente Villas, Nancy Hyde, and Blythe Welton, one of the authors, all contributed to that, to the fish carts, to to paying for the 3rd edition. Another project that we've been working diligently on is the website. We've updated the content and the aesthetics of our website so it's more useful and pleasing to viewers. We spent a lot of hours reviewing all the websites of the other 22 historical societies in Orange County that do have a website. And we plucked out what we liked and what we didn't like. And so we're pretty proud of what we got right now. What I put up there is it's a link page. So we've got, if you want to see a list of the national buildings in San Clemente that are on the National Register, the ones that are on the landmark list, if you want the DPR forms, just about any common thing that you could think of in historical preservation, we've got a link to it there. On that, the store page, we've got our 170 photos online you can look at. We haven't quite figured out how to make it so you can buy them online, but you can look at them and order them online. So I encourage everyone to take a look at our website. Another project ongoing is the dissemination of information. The ways that we go about that, we have a monthly email that we send to our membership, let them know what the board is up to. Monthly article in the San Clemente Times, they give us one Thursday a month. We do a semi-annual article in the San Clemente Journal. We do press releases. We have our website. We have Facebook. We have the monthly Village Art Fair. I don't know if you folks are able to get down to the Village Art Fair, but we set up a booth there on the first Sunday of each month where we have our books and photos and so on. Yes. And also we share, this is important, we share all of our archival material with the city and with the public. When they wanted the murals down on the Ralphs some years back, when they wanted the murals down in the Pier Bowl, we make what we've got available to the public and to the
So you had to use Fitzsimmons for your semi-annual article in the journal?
What's that?
Was it Mike Fitzsimmons was the journal article?
Yes.
You were really scraping the bottom of the barrel for Fitzsimmons to write the article.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Another project is this book, which I'll pass around, booklet. That was, we first made that also in 1975, was upgraded in 99, and we just redid it this past year to correct some little things that had changed and errors and so on. So we sell that book also at our booth. Each new member receives a copy of it, but it's a real nice book. It tells a little bit about the history of Ole Hansen and his idea for forming the city. Another project that we worked on this past year was this map. Here are two of them that we'll pass around. This is a walking and driving tour of San Clemente. We first made that up about 18 years ago, and we realized we needed more, and unfortunately the people who had put it together were not with us anymore. So we had to do a lot of digging to find what we could, and we finally put it back together. But it's a real nice little map. The one side that you see there on the lower left, it lists all 211 of the historic resources in town, and that map is just the center part, but the other side has got a bigger map. It shows all the historic buildings in town with some nice information.
Good work.
Let's get past Ole here. Another project is the museum and archives. Our museum was closed in 2005. A new owner tripled our rent, and so our collection has been in storage since then. We do wish to reopen the museum, and we're searching for a suitable location. So let me know. As unfortunately right now we're paying over $400 a month for the past 12 years to store what we've got. So we're hoping that the city will help us, or somebody will
Are you
come
having any
forward.
luck finding a place, Larry, or are you?
We've come this close a couple of times, but just hasn't quite pulled together. Another project that we've been working on is, as I mentioned earlier, the idea of historic districts. We did a very thorough study of all of Orange County. There are about 8 cities, 8 of the 32, that do have historic districts. Some of them have 1, some have up to 5. I think Anaheim has 5. And I'd love to come and give you the presentation on that someday if you would allow us. One of the recommendations that was made in that 2006 historic resources survey, one of the recommendations that was made back then was that San Clemente is ripe for historic district, 1 or more.
I think we have a hook for that in our general plan, 2014, so it's there, it's just a matter of, through the strategic
When you look through the
implementation
records,
plan, try to work our way to it.
when you look through the records, it keeps appearing over the past 12 years or more, but it just hasn't quite happened. But that's a sample of some of the type of signage that we could use from various towns around Orange County. And it's the effect that it will have is kind of hard to put your finger on, but it goes along with the idea of promoting tourism and just civic pride and so on. Another project that goes along with this is the idea of having historic resource plaques. So we've got 211 historic resources in town, 204 buildings, and then 22 of them, the most important, were designated as landmarks. The City Council did that about 10 years ago, and the remaining 184 are not they're not National Register listed, and they're not landmarks, but they're still on our list of designated historic resources. So what we want to see is a program where everything has some kind of a plaque. If it's on the National Register, it would get a real nice plaque. The 22 that are on the landmark would get something less, and then all of the houses would be eligible to have some other kind of marker. That one there in the center that's broken, that the Historical Society actually instituted a program about 35 years ago, and a few of those are still around town, but the program has kind of fallen apart, and those are kind of difficult because they're brass with the ceramic on the center. So anyway, it's one of the things that we have on our list that we're looking into. That's basically all I had. Oh, I had one other book that I'd like to pass around. This is a Arcadia book, we call it. There are about 190 of our historic photos in there with a little spiel on each one, and we also have those for sale. It's a great book.
Larry,
any questions? Yes.
For the walking tour, do you offer them to the general public? How much interest are there?
We don't escort the tour. We sell those. We sell those at our booth. It's a self-guided tour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's another one of the things that's on our list. I know several cities around are actually giving a guided tour, and it would be nice if we could do that, but we've got to have the volunteers.
Is way at the top, right next to south of Nix, on Del Mar. Is the top booth that right
The big red umbrellas. You can't miss us. All right, thank you, folks.
Larry?
Did you work
Yes.
the test?
Larry, you, in the very beginning there where you had those tile murals, you had a plaque that you showed with the slides? What were you talking about with that plaque? The
Oh,
one there?
the way that we do those murals, we find a sponsor for each of the murals.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the price right off, it's something like $10,000 to sponsor a plaque, and then you get one of those plaques up there with your name on it. And so when you look up and down the street at the 4 bulb outs, they've all got 1 or 2 plaques on them for families that have donated,
Good to know. So
have sponsored
they
those.
sponsor the tile work and the...
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great.
Don't go away, Larry.
Yes.
I just want to say, and probably for everybody here, how much we appreciate your time and effort in doing this, and you need to be recognized that it's not a formal program, that you come to our meetings and talk on specific applications and projects and give us fantastic information and guidance on what to do, and
You keep us honest, Larry.
you keep us honest, and
We
you should be
try.
recognized for that.
All right.
So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes.
I would definitely, but as I said, my son yesterday's in 3rd grade went to Casa Romantica, and so it was really fitting that I saw this on here because he was talking my ear off last night in the car and was really excited about all of the exposure, and a lot of it was historical, and so that's really exciting for me to see as a parent because that's the only thing that makes them continue on, right? So I know you and the society have a lot to do with that education down there.
We tried.
So
Yeah,
thank
we're real proud of what the Casa Romanica is doing. They're doing more programs for the kids and for the community than they ever have, so it's great.
I personally thank you for that. so
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I would recommend, Larry, is to get with the city planner. And I think, this discussion on historic districts would be very amenable to a study session for us, so we could sit there and take an hour. No, to take an hour and just delve into it and look at the pluses and minuses and where we need to go, and because I know it's in the strategic implementation plan, it just gets shoved out to the right because of city staff just has resource constraints.
I'll talk to the city planner about that.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
I have a question for you, Larry. 2 questions. Do you plan on presenting this presentation
The
to
show,
the city
yes.
council? The show. It is a show. It's entertaining. It's good.
To city, I'll do whatever is asked
You
of
might
me.
want to think about it. That would be, good for all ears and,
I would-
more exposure to this important topic in town.
I would consider that if you want, I don't know, you want a straw vote, a recommendation planning commission, that you go to the city, and.
I appreciate that.
How about a straw vote, all in favor? Unanimous, 7-0. And go to Joanne Bay, the city, city clerk, and say the planning commission unanimously recommended that
I'll go on right when they're not too busy.
you get on their schedule.
Super. Thank
Last
you.
question. The
Yes.
200-plus historic structures on the
Yes.
pamphlet?
Yes.
You passed around?
Yeah.
Is that current? Is that an up-to-date list, or is there more?
Yeah. No, they haven't added any, or, no, it's basically
Where can I
current.
get this?
I'll give you one. All right.
You've never offered to give me one.
Thank you.
Well,
You're
Well,
different.
good for you, glad to have it.
This book is, I think it's available out of the...
I just.
It is.
I took a picture and it'll be here tomorrow.
Around town, that's a great book.
We buy
it at Casa
from
Romanica,
us, though,
too.
so,
Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
thank you.
Are you sticking around?
Okay. That would go into Section 5, the minutes. Minutes from the regular study session of May 2nd. Do we have any comments, or do we have a motion on that, which was about art in public and private places?
I'd like it to be known I did win my baseball game.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular study session of May 2nd? So moved. I have a motion by Rue and a second. Second by Smith. All in favor? Aye. Passes 6-0 with one abstention. Now, for the minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of May 2nd, 2018. Do I have a motion or any comments or changes?
I'll move we approve the minutes of the May 2nd meeting.
I have a motion by Ruin, second by, we're all thinking about it, second by Crandall. All in favor? Aye. Passes 6-0-1 with one abstention, right?
That's correct.
Oral and written communication. Members of the audience may address the commission on matters of public interest which pertain to the city and are not otherwise on our agenda this evening. If you wish to speak, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and city of residence, and make a presentation. Please limit your presentation to 3 minutes. Does anybody wish to talk to the commission about anything that is not on our agenda? If not, we have no items on our consent calendar. We'll commence with the public hearings. Public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony. To facilitate the meeting for all attendees, the public is asked to limit their individual presentations to 3 minutes. Following closure of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will respond to questions raised during the hearing and discuss issue and act upon the matter by motion. Item 8A tonight is Site Plan Permit 17375, Minor Conditional Use Permit 17376, Architectural Permit 17377, 225 Avenida Fabricante, Glaukos Corp. Parking Lot. Ms. Maroney, how are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Veronica Moronis, Assistant Planner, and I'll be presenting item 8A to you this evening. Glaukos Corporation Parking Lot. The project is located at 225 Avenida Fabricante, which is the proposed address to be. The site is a vacant parcel located in the Rancho San Clemente Specific Plans Industrial Park. The adjacent properties are developed with office industrial buildings to the south and east, the Richard T. Steed Memorial Park to the north, and Coastal Animal Service Authority to the west. The site is owned by the City of San Clemente, and the applicant has an approved lease agreement with the city to develop the site with a parking lot. The project is a request to consider a site plan permit, minor conditional use permit for the parking lot use, and architectural permit. The proposed project requests to develop the vacant parcel with a 70-stall parking lot that will serve the existing Glaukos properties. Glaukos has expressed to staff their intent to expand here in the city of San Clemente, and business operations request additional overflow parking. Site plan permit, minor conditional use permit, and architectural permit are required per the Rancho San Clemente specific plan. So again, the Rancho San Clemente specific plan states that any new development requires the site plan permit and architectural permit, and the use for the parking lot itself is the minor conditional use permit. The 229 Avenida Fabricante site is directly adjacent to the proposed vacant parcel for development, and you'll see that this shows access routes from the adjacent Avenida Fabricante to the overflow parking. The project meets required design guidelines in regard to landscaping and lighting. Ample trees are provided to buffer the parking lot use. The project was reviewed by Design Review Subcommittee on March 14th, and recommendations from the subcommittee have been included as either conditions of approval or changes made by the applicant. The proposed project meets the required findings as outlined in the draft resolution, attachment 1. The project supports general plan policies, is consistent with city design guidelines as well as specific plan design guidelines, and meets development standards for the specific plan itself. And with that, staff recommends Planning Commission approve this request subject to the conditions of approval and contained within the associated resolution and with the, contained in the attached resolution. And with that, staff concludes their presentation. The applicant is here for questions, and I'm available for questions as well.
Questions of staff. Commissioner Wu, I think your vice president.
Yeah, currently on 229 and 236, that in the existing Glaukos Corporation development, is there any parking issue? Or are there not enough parking?
No, so 229 and 236 do meet their required parking currently, and conditions of approval require them to maintain that parking as well. This is purely overflow additional for their booming business.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question of the applicant.
Okay, let's hold off. Any other questions of staff or Commissioner Talley?
I think my question was just relating to the code compliance sections that were added to the conditions of approval. I know that that's been an area where I've expressed some concern before, just to make sure that they're tailored towards the application, and I wanted to compliment staff for keeping these, I think, tailored to this particular instance and adding quite a few that I think are very important from the loitering and from unoccupied vehicles and such in there. So, thank you.
So was it the applicant's intent to, and staff's intent to continue the palette, if you will, from neighboring properties? The plant palette along the streetscape seems to be consistent with that of the neighbors.
So it is an intent in the Rancho San Clemente specific plan design guidelines for landscaping, and then I believe that the applicant took that on themselves to ensure that as well. So it was not a correction that planning staff had to issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, I noticed Pat Murphy's fingerprints are in the briefing here, so I knew you'd have to bring up something about landscaping.
I knew it would.
I would have been disappointed if you didn't have a question. Commissioner Wu, you're back on. Mr. Crandall,
Just a quick one. Did the conditions of approval get compared to the lease that the city signed with the applicant to make sure that they're all consistent with the lease?
I did review the lease, and there are items that were not included in the conditions of approval because the lease does cover it, such as the use returning to the previous development state if the city wishes and that sort of thing. So yes, that was taken into account.
Very good. Commissioner Wu, you're back on.
Is the landscape architect here?
No, he is not.
Is the civil engineer here?
Yes.
Okay, I got a question about,
Are we ready? Are you still questioning staff? You want to talk to the applicant now? Commissioner Smith, you same
I
way?
have a question for
Applicant or
the
staff?
design.
Okay, so okay. Are we through the staff? I'll have the applicant come up if you'd like, if you commissioners are ready to
Okay,
go.
later on, I have a question for the civil engineer.
Okay. You're waiting for the applicant also? Okay. No more questions of staff, then we'll let the applicant come up and talk our way through it.
Good evening. My name is Matt Young. I'm the Senior Director of Operations with Glaukos Corporation. And Glaukos moved to San Clemente in September of 2016, and we continue to grow. We design, manufacture microimplantable devices to treat glaucoma. We've got a very strong R&D pipeline and several products upcoming currently in clinical trials and planned clinical trials continuing. So part of my role is to make sure that we continue to have the facility and infrastructure that we need to continue to support our growth. I'm grateful for your time this evening.
Okay, so are you the civil engineer on the project, or just the operations? Okay. I guess Commissioner Smith, and we have questions.
Okay, I do have a question that's more of a concern, really. We were given very detailed blueprints of the project, and I appreciate that. From my perspective, it's a really well-designed parking lot, by the way. I'm kind of picky about that, and I think it has a nice layout and everything. But the thing that I did was I did a comparison of your site lighting to your landscaping plan. And what I found is that where you have poles with the double heads, that they coincide exactly over the trees that you're planting. And so I just wanted to ask you about that. It seems like there could be a conflict there, and what's going to keep the trees from growing right into those parking lot lights?
Well, aside from the design perspective, from a maintenance perspective, we have tree service and maintenance that we maintain in our current and existing building and would also do for this parking lot.
So are the lights going to be above the trees to get the light out, or I'm just sort of worried that the light bulbs are going to get engulfed in the trees. Are the trees going to be smaller, or?
We'll make sure during the design phase that we'll cover, and we'll make sure the trees and the lights don't conflict between the light poles and the tree and the trees themselves. And the intent of the trees are to be, outside of the light pattern, so we don't have any shades specific for safety.
Okay, that's great. I'm just pointing that out. I think you ought
Yeah.
to take a look at that because they pattern over
I think there's a condition is not to keep them trimmed.
kind of odd.
Absolutely, we'll look at that.
Okay.
I believe we have a condition in here, Mr. Smith, that requires them to keep the trees in trim and proper shape and all that. I believe that should cover it. Does the applicant, let me ask a question of the applicant. Have you read all the conditions of approval and do you understand them?
Yes, I've met with staff on a number of occasions.
Okay, so you're comfortable with all the
Yep.
conditions of approval that they presented to us?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wu, you've been waiting.
Yes, I made a similar observation on the design document. I was in the design review subcommittee, but I did not catch that. And I noticed that on your landscape plan, you have street trees. Those trees are exactly at the location of the edge of your infiltration basins. So apparently, the two disciplines do not coordinate with each other. So one, because the tree roots is going to grow into an infiltration trench. How do you solve that? You may have to install a
A root barrier?
barrier.
Absolutely. Wherever we have, if we have that situation, we'll install a root barrier, but we also are providing additional underground infiltration within the parking area because that basin itself will not handle
Well,
all
some of the tree may
all the-
even locate right in your basin. It looks like it's right on the edge. So I think, the landscape architect and you need to coordinate to solve that conflict.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
And a solution shall not result in a reduction of the number of trees, either on the street or on the whole site.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Talley.
I just wanted to point out to my fellow commissioners that condition 23 specifically deals with minimum light. So there would have to be a minimum of, I believe, 1 foot candle of light on the parking surface from dusk until the termination of business each day. And so it appears that there's some language that's in there that would require the planting of the lights to not be obscured by the tree. Or at least that's a condition of approval that you're agreeing to, so we'd expect that to be the case if we approve this.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah, one other thing. The lighting that's existing, I am assuming, from your proposed parking lot along that walkway that's going to go to the building itself, is there enough illumination there as it stands to be okay at night without adding any extra light for the employees to make that trek?
That's public street lighting, I believe, right?
And it's located up there.
Mm-hmm.
Got enough light there for that? Checked it.
From which point, sorry?
Well, from the parking lot to the building, as you go along the road there, there's a long walk, and I'm just saying.
It's a long Fabricant.
Yeah, along Fabricano, there's public lighting on both sides of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get on site to the 229 building, there's existing light poles there that currently are providing service
Okay.
to the property.
Is your intention only to provide parking 2229 or the other building across the street?
229.
Just, okay. Thank you. Is there any other question of the applicant? Any of the staff members? Any other question of staff, please? Then we'll close this portion of the hearing and open it up to, is there any public comments? Do we have any cards from the recording secretary? Okay, so we'll close the public hearing and enter into discussion. Commissioner Talley.
I think the comments about lighting are important, and I think we've addressed that. I'm really happy to see San Clemente business growing, and I think we should support them in their growth and, bring the jobs to the city and provide them parking, so I'm supportive of the project.
Mr. Blackwell?
Yes, I too am supportive of the project. I like to see with parking lot design, to Commissioner Smith's point, I agree it's a good design. We have a high canopy, low shrubs for maximum visibility. I'm not entirely satisfied with the the landscape plan as it's shown now. We have sort of a blanket hatching in the plan showing various types of materials, some ground cover, some shrubs, but with no specifics on what is along the streetscape. So I personally like to see less asphalt and more landscaping, or more architecture, less asphalt. So it's unclear, but I think that to staff's point about the continuity in landscape materials, spacing of the Tristanias along Avenida Fabricante, we're going to have some continuity there, and it's expected that that lower growth would be also consistent with the adjacent parcel, so I'm satisfied with that. However, I am concerned with a point that Commissioner Smith brought up, and that is the lighting location. And the trees that are shown right beneath each light standard it's a carrotwood tree, and it grows about 25 feet tall with a pretty wide canopy. It's going to grow right up into the lights. It's poor placement, and to achieve one 24-inch box or one tree per 5 stalls, and have nice separation from trunk to each stall, to have adequate shading. This is standard design in parking lots. There might be a challenge there. You might be hard-pressed to achieve the standards that we have for planting and also the proper lighting coverage. So right now, the placement that you've got doesn't work at all. The design just doesn't work. We cannot achieve the intention of our code for proper lighting on the surface and that balance with the proper amount of trees and sizing of trees. So with that said, as I said, I like the design, I do, except for that part of it. We just can't meet our objectives in our own code with this design.
I'm looking, isn't there a condition for the city landscape architect to keep his fingerprints on this project?
Right, and thank you for bringing that up. That was my last point. And to our city planner, that is a topic that's come up repeatedly as of late. This last year, we've had discussions about that, and sadly, our landscape plans are going to our consulting landscape architect after it passes through design review and planning commission. We would like to, I think it would be in the city's best interest to have that review done beforehand, so we can see those recommendations, and the landscape architect would have noticed that and made those changes in advance, so that the applicant wouldn't be faced with potential delays in the redesign.
Let me jump on that.
And that, if that could be, I don't know how we get that to happen. Make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation to the city planner.
We've had the discussion in the past, and I think it would be a great idea to do that. It just makes good sense.
Thank you. Commissioner Crandall.
Yeah, I do want to state that in the package, they provided a photometric design for all lighting, and that is going to be enforced and reviewed by engineering department to make sure that that occurs. So I think we've got a lot of, and the conditions of approval also reinforce that again. So we've got some professionals that are reviewing this who have more experience than we do in lighting, et cetera, and I put a lot of faith in their ability to review it. But I agree it's a good project. It's far better than a vacant lot that we've got there now, and it serves a good purpose, and it's well designed, and I can make the findings to support the project.
I think I saw the lighting displays in there. I knew if there was some problem, Commissioner Rowland would bring it up. So with his dark sky being called out, Commissioner Wu, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, I support this project. I think it's a good thing to turn this vacant lot into a parking lot, which is for the benefit of the business next door. I do share the concern of other commissioners about the quality of not having a cohesive design between different disciplines. Lighting is an issue, as other pointed out. The location of the trees, the street trees, and the infiltration is another thing that needs to be solved. Ideally, those issues should be solved at this moment, but we just noticed it. And another thing I'd like to have is to have a pedestrian walkway connection between this parking lot and the 229, since they are going to be used by people on 229. Maybe if the grading allows, I think it's easy to just put a couple of feet wide and walkway connecting to this.
That's a 20-foot drop. That's a pretty steep drop on the topographics there.
15 feet, it's steep.
15 steep.
Oh,
It is. That would be a very difficult.
good to
There
see
you go.
that. Okay, I take it back.
In the drawing there, it's very steep. It's not simple. Particularly when you got ADA path of travel, 2% slope to
Well, I said,
You'd be
if
digging
the
a
grading
long
is
trench.
allowed, apparently it
It'd be a
doesn't.
real long sidewalk, I think. Okay. Do we just need to put a condition in to make sure that the final landscape plans are approved by the city landscape architect? Is that in there? So I kept looking for it, I didn't see it.
Yeah, if I may interject, the project has been reviewed preliminarily for landscape by Pat Murphy and his firm, and there is a condition of approval for final landscape plans.
Is it in there? I kept looking for it and I couldn't find it.
Let me
Rick. Okay, good. I'll definitely take your word for it. It wasn't project specific. I was looking for the other spots, but I think that would, if we keep Pat Murphy.
Number 11.
Thank you. If Pat Murphy's fingerprints are on it, I think between that and some of the lighting issues, I think we're good to go then. Yep, there it is. Thank you.
And Chair, we
Okay.
certainly will make the issues that have been raised tonight
Okay.
known to Mr. Murphy before he completes his
Thank you.
review.
Okay. Okay, with that,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm
Sorry, my light, you just missed
Oh,
my
I'm
light.
sorry.
And I just wanted to check real quick, it was actually a question for Commissioner Blackwell. I just wanted to clarify, because I didn't quite understand. Are you comfortable with staff handling the lighting and the trees and resolving that issue? Is that, or did you feel like more work needed to be done?
Thank you for asking. I would be comfortable if our standards can be met. If not, if there's any significant change in the design, it may need to come back. You know, that would warrant that. But if staff can work that out with the landscape architect, I'd be comfortable.
Okay, so we can count on them to do that and come back to us if there's some major issue that they detect. So,
Yep.
all right, great.
they can agree to,
Can I ask a point on that? Because that brings up an interesting point. I always assume, maybe that's a bad assumption, that if we have something on there and if there is a major deviation, the staff would bring that back to us. Is that, I guess, I always assumed that was the case. Is that in fact the case?
yeah. If the experts can't resolve something to the city planner and city engineer's satisfaction out of this, technically, they would be required to bring it back, but that's,
The zoning code does specify what types of changes can be made before it needs to go back to the approval authority versus what can be done at staff. So certainly, the staff has the ability to make some minor changes. Anything changing the intent or affecting the conditions of approval would have to come back to Planning Commission.
I think the zoning code has set the performance standard, but just merely asking an applicant to meet that performance standard, sometimes it doesn't work well because I think as a commission, we want to see a solution that actually works. And I think that's what Commissioner Blackwell is trying to see, instead of saying, okay, you're going to meet this requirement, and then it's okay. We want to see the actual design that works.
And I think, you know, we have the conditions of approval, like condition number 11, which is basically saying, you know, staff, you know, that's for planning, right? It's a planning condition of approval. So staff should say, nope, you're not there yet with that condition of approval until they get there. But if they can't reach a solution without yet more conditions or some major design changes, that's when our approval would have to be reviewed, I take it, so, yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong about anything, so.
I have one comment for staff. If you could direct Pat Murphy to take a look at the clustering of Tristanias at the northeast corner of the parking lot. It looks like there may have been a mistake there. They're really closely bunched and there's just no balance. I don't know if that was intended or in the plans that we received, yes, you see that, the three that are clustered together? Mm-hmm. Just to have him take a look at that and see if he agrees with that clustering so close. It doesn't occur anywhere else. We've got a nice 24 to 26 foot spacing on center for the frontage there, and then we've got that one isolated cluster. And these trees grow, I mean, in their in healthy environment. They're 25, 30 feet tall with a nice 20 to 25 foot canopy in this region. So that could start to look really awkward in that corner because we don't have that occurring anywhere else. Maybe if the southeast corner had that clustering, it could work, but it doesn't.
Or eliminate one of the trees
Yeah,
and lighten it
maybe
up.
eliminate one, maybe the one on the inside. Just have them look at that for balance sake. If anything, maybe take that willow that's right across. See, I think it's supposed to be a willow. The tree right at the entry on the right, it's a different shade of green. You see, it almost seems as if that, but in the plan, it's 3 tristanias and 1 willow by itself on the right. So, just a note if you haven't looked at that. That's it.
Okay. With that,
All right, I would make a motion to approve resolution number PC 18013, which is a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving site plan permit 17375, minor conditional use permit 17376, and architectural permit 17377, Glaukos Corporation parking lot, a request to consider a 70-stall parking lot with access gates on a vacant property located at 205 Avenida Fabricante.
I have a motion by Commissioner Talley, second by Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. Hey, thank you, Vetch, and good luck. Okay, with that, that concludes public hearing for as far as item 8 tonight. We'll now go on to new business. The Capital Improvement Program annual update with our illustrious Christopher Wright.
Good evening, Planning Chair, Commissioners. Christopher Wright, Associate Planner. This is a request to do an annual update of the Capital Improvement Program and have the Planning Commission find that it's consistent with the general plan. This is a state requirement of a planning advisory body at each city to find that it's consistent with the general plan, and the Capital Improvement Program is updated through the budget process. The Planning Commission's role is limited to finding general plan consistency, whereas the City Council directs the nature of the project, scope, phase, costs, and other details. So with that, the resolution includes a listing of projects. In the lower right-hand corner is a page number in the event that we need to have a discussion. The related general plan policy numbers for each project are identified on page 7 of the packet report. And then the policies are a little bit later in Exhibit B. And then there's project sheets for each project. And one of our engineers here, if you have questions on a particular project.
Oh, please come forward. We don't want our engineer to be sitting here all alone. Please come forward and assist the planner out, if you could. A familiar face once a year that we see.
Yeah, it's nice to see y'all. Good evening.
Do we have any questions or discussion of engineering and planning tonight as far as a consistency with the general plan for the Capital Improvement Program for 2018-20? Commissioner Blackwell.
Yeah, I just have a question about current materials and discussions on using alternative materials to the fields. We're using, in the plan, there's discussion about the artificial turf.
Right.
There's been a lot of press on the some of the negatives associated with the type of materials that have traditionally been used. What are your thoughts on a go-forward plan?
Staff is aware of those issues. This is why this project was raised by our maintenance staff. We are well aware of those issues that exist. I think it's the petrochemicals and the cancer issues, obviously, with the rubber that goes into the synthetic surfacing. We're going to address that through our road replacement program. I don't know the details. I can't speak to the technical merits of the types of rubber or the specific materials, but that is in the plan as far as looking in that and making sure that we provide a field that's safe for our community.
Okay. So to further that discussion, is that a budget item to remove and replace and maintain over a specified period of time? What is that period of time?
I don't know the useful life of the synthetic field. I believe it's about 10 years, but I can't speak to, again, the specifics. Yes, the budget included would be for the removal and replacement. It's the full kit and caboodle. Includes the soft costs as well, the management, the administration, the inspection work. So it is a loaded cost in there.
Okay, and for the reasons that you mentioned, health-related issues, is there a sense of urgency on implementation of that part of the plan?
You know, I don't really know the specifics. I'd be happy to forward your request or your question to our maintenance manager, who probably is, deep in the weeds on a lot of these issues. I'd really be shooting from the hip if I went any deeper than that. But yes, there is a definite need, and the plan is to execute that project within the next fiscal year.
Oh, that's good. That answers my question. Thank you.
Well, I would say that Mr. Mimosa Sports Park's not that old, so I think you're doing a forced removal early, and it's good that, our maintenance manager's trying to get ahead of the program and start with this field and maybe go to others. But, so it's I think it's a good point.
Yeah, it's a group of great professionals over there
Yeah.
trying to maintain our city assets.
So it's, actually, it's an early removal, which is probably a good thing compared to the normal life of that thing, just to get the materials out of there. Commissioner Rulon, your light's been on.
Yeah, I had a question about the Marblehead Coastal Streetlight and pole and fixtures. We do have in our general plan some policies about good financial management and that sort of thing, and those, we're buying spare, it looks like we're buying spare streetlights for a place where the streetlights are only a few years old. So can you give me more detail on that?
Yeah, my understanding is I believe that the Marblehead neighborhood has those very articulate or architecturally nice streetlights, and so obviously we throughout the city have a lot of the concrete standard streetlights. So we stock all of the materials to maintain what we typically maintain. Obviously, as Marblehead ages, exposure to the coastal environment, there's going to be need to do maintenance out there. And so again, we're trying to get ahead of the game, trying to have the materials in stock, so when those issues do arise, we don't have to shut a street light off and wait for potential month or 2 months of lead time. A lot of these materials have significant lead times, and so it's a way to stock our warehouse and be ready when if there ever is an emergency out there or a need to replace something.
Okay, and just remind me, now I'm thinking it's probably longer than I thought. Those lights have probably been up there for 5 years, because something like that, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think they went in.
They went in and then development.
They went in
stopped,
during
right?
the bankruptcy, so I think
Yeah.
they're even older than 5 years.
Okay, yeah, so it's probably about time to start stocking. Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Talley, working right to left here.
I just have a quick question, maybe nobody knows the answer to this one here, but on a traffic calming program, I noticed that the funding source was the Air Quality Management Fund, and that one kind of made me scratch my head. I can understand a trolley, but the traffic calming.
The legal basis, I believe, is that as a result of traffic calming, you're reducing the emissions from vehicles. That's what I've been told from the transportation folks. I specifically asked that question about 10 years ago when I started, because I noticed it as well, and that was the justification I was given.
Sounds good to me. I was just curious.
I would also note that this traffic calming budget's been kind of level loaded at $80,000 a year for the last 10 years, and it looks like it's 10 years forward. And my recommendation to take staff for future years, you might consider increasing it somewhat, since we now have this new approved soft mat that they use at the Fire Authority as approved. And so you're going to see a lot of requests, I think, coming in for traffic calming with this new speed hump mat that's not asphalt, so that the Fire Authority's apparently is approved and signed off. And we had a public outreach meeting by the traffic engineers for the whole Southwest District area, from Valencia to Trafalgar. So I think there's like 8 streets are all going to come in with requests. But I think going forward, I would just suggest that the staff consider in the next out years that maybe it's time to bump that up a little bit, just a recommendation.
Duly noted, Commissioner Brown.
Okay, that's all.
I believe, at a high level, I believe the funding is a result of the revenue we receive from that particular fund.
Okay.
I believe the fund doesn't have a huge balance. I don't have the information in front of me. But if you're curious, I'd be happy to follow up with you.
No, I'll
let
go to
you
the
know
traffic
kind of where
engineer direct.
those fund balances are, because that's the reason that we're projecting some of these funds, is to maintain a balance in the funds, the special funds that where we build our projects from. So if we're drawing down those fund balances too low, then we're unable to budget for more projects next year.
I hear you.
So I think there is a balancing act going on there with that 80,000.
Just want to say I can forecast increased demand in this area just because of the way the city outreach, traffic engineers are doing a huge outreach. They mailed 2,100 notices out to that Southwest District where I happen to live, and got one. So pays to advertise, as the old saying goes. So they might have to increase it. I would also like to commend staff as you continue repaving our alleyways that have not been touched from 50 years. Keep it up. You're 3 blocks away from my alley, so keep going.
That's that program.
No, with that, Commissioner Wu.
I like most of the projects. I think they make sense, and I agree that they're consistent with our general plan for most of the part, especially the pier structure construction to add an ADA accessible route, the alley pavement rehabilitation, the incremental trolley program, sidewalk repair and improvement, traffic calming, and the signal, the audible signal heads for pedestrian crossing. Those are great. I do have a few questions from here for a few items. I started with by the sequence on the list. So the first item is Avenida Del Mar street tree rehabilitation. The street tree, currently the street trees are carrotwood trees, and they are designated species on our design guidelines. And it's referred by it in our general plan too. So by changing those carrotwood trees to Washingtonia, I believe it's a typo, filifera, which is California fen palm. By changing them to California fen palm, the feeling of that urban place is going to be quite different. And I wonder if we went through any hearing, went through any discretionary review process. This is not a simple maintenance issue, because we're changing the streetscape substantially for the sake of easy maintenance. I understand the carrotwood trees have more extensive root system than a palm tree, which is pretty small. But California palm tree doesn't have a big shade. It's not a shade tree. It's probably shorter and stouter than Mexican fen palm, but it's not a shade tree. It's not a broadleaf tree. So, and also it's not the designated tree for Del Mar. So I'm concerned that without much public input, we can just go there and change those trees. I'm not sure about that.
Well, what I can tell you, Commissioner Wu, is that we do have internal project coordination team as far as the review process. What the CIP engineers do is we package up a memorandum with the project sheets and a high-level budget, a high-level scope, and a high-level schedule. And we distribute those to all of the various divisions, to the managers of the divisions. And we solicit feedback as far as what the processing on this type of project would be, or any of the projects that were going through the project coordination team. I'm not the one making the recommendation on the tree, but I can definitely convey the concern to the Director of Public Works, who obviously works with the maintenance manager, who I'm sure was involved in writing this description and vetting the tree. But to your point, I think if there's a concern about the type of tree and it doesn't conform to one of the governing documents of the city and that particular area, obviously that is a concern to us as well. So I think that the project coordination team process that we've established in our internal review If we're being provided guidance from the planning department to vet the trees at the planning commission, that's exactly what we would do.
Okay, so this is due to the process of soliciting input. It's not a finalized list to be implemented.
Well, every project will go through an internal input review.
Okay.
And so we're looking for the various subject matter experts in the various divisions to give us that guidance.
Okay.
Obviously, things that are in the right of way, that are out of sight, out of mind, no one really seems to care about those things, the underground utilities. But when we're getting into visible things that impact the look and feel of the community, obviously we know that's under your purview. So we would reach out to the project coordination team and look for their guidance if in fact we'd be requested to come back to the Planning Commission with a specific tree options.
Okay. And the next item is City Hall relocation. It mentioned S-7.01, talking about emergency service. I wonder if that involves with the police station, the police substation underneath?
No, currently the police substation is not a part of that relocation. That has not been decided. If in fact it references public service or public emergency services, it's probably incorrect. I don't know if, Chris, you have any input on it or not. Which project? It's the
City Hall relocation.
City Hall relocation. So the S7.01.
Oh, okay, the idea behind that is our emergency services officer is in our community development offices, in Calle Negocio. So one of our emergency services staff, the coordinator of our emergency operations center is in our building, in Calle Negocio.
So not police.
No.
Not police, not fire. Okay.
No, the wording of this policy is broad. It includes emergency services in a broad description. So that was the idea behind there.
Well, we're spending $2.5 million on this thing. I think we owe the public a little more explanation, or maybe you can elaborate a little more about how this can conform the general plan for this item.
For each one of these projects?
No, for the City Hall.
In fact, that was agendized at City Council a year or so ago when they made the decision to relocate over there because of this building's condition. So that was fully agendized to the public at a City Council meeting when they made the decision. It was a staff position paper that was inputted.
Okay.
So the City Council did put
can I
their
make
fingerprints all over it.
Can I make a comment? To clarify, this is not an approval process for each one of these projects. Separate from this process, this goes
Correct.
with the budget, and then separate from the budget, there's another process that the engineering team works with the City Council public review process as needed. That includes an environmental review, and it could include design review depending upon the scope of the project. So this is not the end outcome for every one of these projects. There's additional opportunity to provide input.
Next item is the Boys and Girls Club trash enclosure. Does the city own it?
Yes, it does. It owns the parking lot and the trash enclosure.
The trash enclosure is owned by the city.
Correct. The whole land, the entire facility is owned by the city.
The Boys and Club.
The Boys and Girls Club rents the footprint of that the buildings are on from the city. It's a 40-year lease.
Oh, okay. And then also the reservoir. That's item 46.
46.
About the reservoir 10 and 6 water line. It looks like we're expanding the capacity of one of the reservoir, but
Actually, that's not an expansion of capacity. What it is it replaces a line through through a canyon that's been out of service for a couple years as a result of, just our land movement issues. So we took that line out of service, we did a big study, and we worked with a team to figure out how we could supplement the city's system by not having to go back into that canyon where we were going to definitely have problems with the existing line that we left in place and abandoned it. So basically what we've done is we've looped the water system. We've taken a branch of a loop and we've just moved it to another location. So we have a redundant feed.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Projects 1, 3, 11, and 12 are all from the Vista Hermosa Sports Park, right?
That's correct.
How old is that facility?
I believe that facility came online and was it about 12 or 10? I'm not 100% sure. But I want to say it's 6, 7 years old.
Well, that seems more in line, 6, 7 years, in my way of thinking, but I'm not sure. Anyway, funny that we're having those failures on that material in that short amount of time. I would suggest before you spend money on that you check the warranties that should come along with the building of that program. That this stuff might be warranted by the contractor. And especially the pool plaster, that shouldn't be failing now. And I wonder about the shade structure too. I just suggest that you do that because there might be a way for the city to avoid paying for something that's a performance issue that's not holding up to its warranty.
We'll convey that thought to our maintenance manager, Commissioner Smith. Thank you.
But it is a fact that these projects do tie to that they need to tie to.
Yeah, these came
plan.
straight out of the maintenance.
They come right out of the general, they do hook with the general
parks.
plan, which is what we're here for.
My point is, I'm sure it has to be done, but if the plaster's failing, it may be, might be an inferior job and it should be under a warranty. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, our typical public works construction, warranties are typically about a year, unless it's a specific, that's what's written into our contracts. That's standard for public works construction. It doesn't mean that there's not an additional warranty rider on top of it. That's typical for equipment or materials, so to speak, but typically, things that were built by a contractor are typically warranted for about a year.
So pool plaster typically is warranted for at least 10 years.
Okay, I appreciate your comment, and we'll definitely look into that.
Commissioner Blackwell, and then we'll finish up with Commissioner Talley.
Yeah, so quick question for staff on this one. Is the, has Beaches, Parks and Rec, do they have a chance to look at this? And the Coastal Advisory Committee?
Beaches, Parks and Rec representation is part of our CIP stakeholder process. So we're meeting starting in December all the way through this current period to go through and vet various projects because we're always, money's an issue. Resources are an issue here. And obviously, the prioritization happens through a various iterative process of meetings with the city manager, the assistant city manager, and all the maintenance professionals that are at the city. So yes, the Beaches Parks Department is part of that CIP committee.
Clearly, we have a checks and balance, and, just to remind everybody here, our job is to ensure that a finding can be made that this program is consistent with the Centennial General Plan. That's it. We're not getting into the weeds on any of the details.
That's all it is.
Some of the questions we have, we've got to read through all this stuff, so obviously there's going to be a lot of data covered, and naturally there will be some questions, but we appreciate you taking the time to.
No problem. It's definitely a big program. 25 projects on capital this year, 13.2 million. 25 projects on the maintenance side, about 5 million. So yeah, close to 20 million. We expect those questions from the folks here at the city who are vetting these projects. It's good to talk about the projects.
Yeah, and over a third of these items are beaches, parks, and rec related. It says a lot about our city.
Good. Golf course improvements and everything.
We've been really focused on trying to deal with deferred maintenance. And trying to be proactive about maintenance. That's probably why you're seeing some of the issues at Vista Hermosa. I can't speak specifically, but it's trying to get ahead of the curve. There's a lot of assets out there, I'm sure you're familiar with, that you've seen, that you've wondered, why is that not being replaced? And that's because there's competition for the resources. The general fund funds so much of the city assets, the street lights, the parks, the benches, everything you see out there. We've created this maintenance management system over the last couple of years where we're trying to manage 100,000 assets that the city owns. You know, I was heavily involved in
That's
creating.
called Lucity, I think it is.
It's called Lucity.
The system you bought?
And basically what we're doing is we're tracking every wrench turned to the specific asset. The goal there is to try to forecast into the future our replacement costs for specific assets, and that's based on criteria such as the condition, such as risk of failure, such as consequence of failure, and the existing useful life of the assets. So what we're doing is we're building this model that's going to give us these projections so we can plan for the future 10, 20, 30 years out. Because
Like a reserve
realistically,
study.
what we're dealing with right now is we're dealing with trying to pull money out of things to deal with things that weren't dealt with 20 years ago.
One of those things is the sand replenishment. You know, that's going to be an ongoing nightmare for the city, and, you know, effectively addressing that. You know, we spend almost $500,000 on our pier alone in maintenance fees.
A year.
Reoccurring every year. I mean, that's a huge number. I mean, that's just one element within the city. You know, $450,000 a year goes towards that. And not including what Your Pride is proposing, and, you know, other interests. That's just straight maintenance, and a lot of it's obligations we have to maintain that, legally maintain that, not just because the city wants to keep the pier looking good, because we're legally obligated to maintain the caissons, all kinds of stuff that really adds to that ticket every year. So, thank you.
Yeah, one of the great hires was a really savvy maintenance manager that we didn't have until about 4 or 5 years ago.
That's
too.
correct.
Randy's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Okay. With that,
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Blackwell asking a question that I wanted to make sure of, which is, these projects look great, totally outside my subject matter, but I can see where they tied the general plan, and that's what I need to do. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number PC 18-014, which is a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, finding the fiscal year 2018-2019 capital improvement program is consistent with the San Clemente General Plan.
motion by Commissioner Talley, second by Commissioner Rulon. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Commissioners.
To say that I agree with everything, every item is consistent, but I object to the number, task 2, which is to replace Del Mar Street tree. I think that does not conform to the general planning policy in our urban design.
I second that.
It's just it's a comment. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, with that, there's no old business, and
Thank you.
we're moving on here.
Thank you.
Tentative future agenda.
You sticking around, Chris?
Do you guys want me to address?
No,
Okay, thanks.
take your motion and run. Future business, anything from the city planner to share at all, or you're on 1 week on the job and just getting up to speed?
I am,
Excuse us
so I
now,
don't
one
have any
meeting.
insight to give you, but if you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
Okay, but I think the next meeting right now, we have on the 8th of June, there's nothing scheduled right now, is there? Hopefully some things will flesh in between now and then, I suppose. So,
Are you ready for a motion to adjourn?
any other questions on future agenda? Okay, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to the regular meeting of the study session of the Planning Commission to be held at 6:00 p.m. on June the 8th, 2018, in council chambers at City Hall located at 100 Avenida Presidio, San Clemente, California.
Motion by Talley, I have a second by... Second by Smith, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 7-0. Meeting adjourned.